Introduction. Goodbye, linear life. Hey. So, let me tell you about the beginning of this book. It kicks off with a story that I think so many of us can relate to. The author, Anne-Laure, talks about having what looked like the perfect dream job at Google. You know, the kind of job your parents would brag about: great pay, cool projects, a clear corporate ladder to climb. But here's the twist: she wasn't happy. It felt like she was just following a pre-written script, and it was draining her. So, she quit. But the story doesn't stop there. She then jumped into the next socially approved adventure, launching her own tech startup. And guess what? That didn't work out either. But this is where it gets really interesting. Instead of seeing it as a massive failure, that moment of being completely lost was actually the most liberating experience for her. It forced her to stop chasing prescribed goals and instead reacquainted her with an old friend, her own curiosity. This whole introduction sets the stage for the book's core idea: moving away from the linear life, where you have a step-by-step plan, to an experimental life, where you embrace uncertainty as a space for exploration. She argues that our world is obsessed with rigid goals, but life is messy and non-linear. This book isn't a recipe for success, but a toolkit. It's designed to help us use systematic curiosity to navigate the messiness. The book is structured into 4 awesome parts: Pact, which is all about committing to curiosity; ACT, about practicing mindful productivity; React, about collaborating with uncertainty; and Impact, about growing with the world. It's basically a guide to turning doubt into opportunity and challenges into self-discovery. It's a total permission slip to stop trying to have it all figured out and instead start living a more playful, experimental life. I'm so excited for you to hear about the rest. Chapter 1: Why Goal Setting is Broken. Alright, grab another sip of your coffee, because this chapter is a game changer. It basically tears down everything we've been taught about setting goals. The chapter opens with the story of Amelia Earhart, and not just her famous flight. It turns out, her life was a series of tiny experiments. She was a social worker, tried portrait photography, and even launched a trucking business. Her path wasn't a straight line, it was driven by endless curiosity. This is the core argument: traditional goal setting, like the whole SMART goals framework, is broken for our modern, unpredictable world. These goals are too linear and rigid. The book points out 3 huge flaws. First, they stimulate fear of failure, of not being qualified, which leads to analysis paralysis. Second, they encourage toxic productivity, making us feel like we have to be constantly on to justify our existence. And third, they breed competition and isolation, making us see potential collaborators as rivals on the same ladder. It's that Red Queen effect, where you have to run faster and faster just to stay in the same place. So, what's the alternative? An experimental mindset. The book contrasts 2 ways we react to uncertainty. Response 1 is the default: fear, anxiety, wanting to escape. Response 2 is the goal: delight, calm, and curiosity, seeing uncertainty as a space of possibility. To get there, we need to make 3 big mental shifts. We need to go from automatic fear to autonomous exploration. We need to switch our mental model from fixed ladders to iterative growth loops. And we need to redefine success from being outcome-based to being process-based. It's about finding satisfaction in the journey itself, not just in reaching some far-off destination. This chapter basically gives you permission to ditch the rigid roadmap and start befriending uncertainty. Chapter 2: Escaping the Tyranny of Purpose. Okay, so this next chapter tackles something huge: our culture's obsession with finding your purpose. You know the pressure, right? That feeling that you need to have this one grand, noble calling. The book argues that this quest for a singular purpose is just another form of conformity, another trap that can limit our growth. To illustrate this, it tells the amazing story of Ron Finley, the gangsta gardener from LA. He started as a successful fashion designer, but when a recession hit, that dream stalled. Annoyed that he couldn't find fresh produce in his neighborhood, he started a tiny experiment, planting vegetables in the strip of soil in front of his house. This act of rebellion sparked a whole guerrilla gardening movement. His story shows that our lives aren't about one single purpose, they're a collection of evolving passions and contributions. So why do we get stuck on one path? The chapter introduces the idea of cognitive scripts. These are the subconscious rules and narratives we live by. It breaks them down into 3 types. 1. The sequel script. This is when we feel we have to keep doing what we've always done. It's the self-consistency fallacy where our past dictates our future. 2. The crowd-pleaser script. This one is all about meeting the expectations of others, our family, society, our peers. We chase a dream, but it's not our own. 3. The epic script. This is the follow your passion script. It sounds great, but it often sets us up for failure because it ignores the reality of hurdles and is fueled by survivorship bias. We only hear about the few who made it. The way out is to unlearn these scripts. And the practical tool for this is brilliant. Conduct an anthropology of your life. For one day, you take field notes on your phone, jotting down your energy levels, moods, and moments of curiosity. This isn't about creating a detailed log, but about collecting little data points. By reviewing these notes, you can spot patterns, formulate a research question, like how can I feel more creative, and then develop a hypothesis to test. It's a powerful way to get back in touch with what you genuinely want, free from all the shoulds. Chapter 3, A Pact to Turn Doubts into Experiments. This chapter is where things get super practical and exciting. It's all about taking those hypotheses we just talked about and turning them into real, tangible action. The perfect example to start with is Alexander Callaway, the guy who created the hashtag 100 Days of Code challenge. He wanted to get better at coding but struggled to stay committed. So, he made a public oath to code for an hour a day for 100 days. It wasn't about becoming an expert in 100 days, it was just about showing up. And that simple commitment device exploded into a global movement. This is the central tool of the chapter, the Pact. It's a simple but powerful formula. I will, action, for, duration. The beauty of the Pact is that it focuses on your output, what you can control, like writing for 30 minutes, instead of the outcome, what you can't, like getting 1,000 followers. A good pact has 4 qualities, spelling out PACT. It's purposeful, actionable, continuous, and trackable, with a simple yes/no. The chapter explains that confidence isn't something you're born with, it's built through the action of these repeated trials. Every time you show up for your pact, you're gathering evidence that you can do what you set out to do. Plus, there's this thing called the serial order effect, which means our ideas and skills naturally get better the more we iterate. It's also important to know what a pact is not. It's not a habit, because it's time-bound and failure is just data. It's not a vague New Year's resolution, it's specific and realistic. And it's not a performance metric like a KPI. Success is just doing the thing, regardless of the numbers. When choosing your first pact, the advice is to think tiny. Resist the urge to be a maximalist. What's the smallest version of this experiment you can run, especially on your worst days? You don't need to quit your job. You can be like the many examples in the chapter who built amazing things on the side. The ultimate guide for choosing is your own warm curiosity, something that feels both pragmatic and exciting. By creating your first pact, you've officially stepped into your own life laboratory. Chapter 4, A Deeper Sense of Time. Okay, this chapter is a lifesaver for anyone who feels like they're constantly running out of time. It starts with that viral image, your life in weeks, you know, the grid of little boxes that's supposed to represent your entire life. It's motivating, but also super anxiety-inducing. It feeds into this cultural panic the Germans call Torschlusspanik, the fear that the gates are closing on your opportunities. The book argues that our modern obsession with time management and squeezing every last drop of productivity out of our day is exactly what leads to burnout. The problem is that we treat time as a commodity to be spent, saved, and budgeted. The solution is to shift our perspective and practice mindful productivity. Here's the core idea, and I love this. The ancient Greeks had two words for time. Chronos is the time we're all familiar with, quantitative, sequential, clock and calendar time. It's the ticking boxes. But they also had Kairos, which is qualitative time. It's the right moment, the opportune time for action. It's that feeling when time seems to stretch or fly by because you're so engaged. The book reframes our lives not as a grid of identical Chronos boxes, but as a fluid experience of Kairos moments, or magic windows. So, how do we find more Kairos? Mindful productivity isn't about managing time, but managing our internal resources. 1. Physical resources, energy. This is about tuning into your natural rhythms. Understand your chronotype. Are you a morning lark or a night owl? And use energy syncing to match your most demanding tasks to your energy peaks. 2. Cognitive resources, executive function. Our brains can't actually multitask well. We have an attentional bottleneck. The key is sequential focus, doing one important thing at a time, fully present. 3. Emotional resources, emotions. Instead of pushing through stress, we need to listen to our bodies. The tool here is conscious movement, even small stretches or rotations, to regulate our nervous system and stay emotionally agile. The chapter wraps up with a beautiful, practical tool, designing a Kairos ritual. This is a small, personal ritual, like making a cup of tea, listening to a specific song, or doing a quick stretch, that you can use to consciously shift your state and open a magic window, even on a busy day. It's all about focusing on being more instead of just doing more. Chapter 5. Procrastination is not the enemy. If you've ever felt guilty about procrastinating, this chapter will feel like a huge weight has been lifted off your shoulders. It starts by pointing out how all the typical advice, use more willpower, white-knuckle it, or even punish yourself, just doesn't work in the long run. The book's central, and honestly, revolutionary argument is this: procrastination is not a moral failing or a sign of laziness. It's a listening failure. It's your brain sending you a message that something is wrong, and instead of listening, we try to shoot the messenger. It uses the Buddhist analogy of the two arrows. The first arrow is the act of procrastination itself. That stings a bit. But the second arrow, the one that really hurts, is our reaction to it, the shame, the guilt, the self-blame. The key is to dodge that second arrow and get curious instead. From a neuroscience perspective, procrastination is often a sign of poor teamwork between our emotional brain, the limbic system, and our rational brain, the frontoparietal network. So, how do we listen? The chapter gives us an amazing tool called the triple check, inspired by the educational philosophy of head, hand, and heart. When you're procrastinating, you ask yourself 3 questions to diagnose the problem. 1. Head, is the task appropriate? Maybe you're procrastinating because, deep down, you know the strategy is flawed or the task isn't the right one. The solution is to step back and redefine the strategy. 2. Heart, is the task exciting? This tackles the emotional side. Are you bored, scared of failure, or annoyed? The solution is to redesign the experience to make it more engaging, maybe by pairing it with something fun. 3. Hand, is the task doable? This is about your perceived abilities. Do you feel like you lack the skills or tools to do the job? The solution is to request support or get training. The chapter also makes a crucial point that sometimes procrastination isn't about you at all, but about a broken system you're in, using the powerful story of a nurse named Amy who was burning out in an overwhelming hospital environment. And finally, it suggests that what you do when you're procrastinating can be a huge clue to what you're genuinely curious about, pointing you toward your next tiny experiment. It completely reframes procrastination from an enemy to a compassionate guide. Chapter 6. The Power of Intentional Imperfection. This chapter is for every perfectionist out there, and let's be honest, that's a lot of us. It opens with a fantastic quote from superstar producer Shonda Rhimes, who says that whenever she's succeeding in one part of her life, she's almost certainly failing in another. And she says, that is completely okay. This sets up the core idea. Our relentless pursuit of perfection is not only unattainable, but it's also a direct path to burnout, and it kills our creativity. The antidote isn't to settle for mediocrity, but to embrace intentional imperfection. To explain this, the book uses the brilliant analogy of Italian culture. On one hand, you have la dolce vita, the sweet life, and incredible excellence in things like fashion and food. On the other hand, you have the sour side, notoriously unreliable postal services and bureaucracy. The point is that this is a strategic choice. You can't be the best at everything, so you focus your energy on what truly matters. True perfection, it argues, lies in imperfection, because that's where there's room to grow and evolve. It reinforces this with another concept, strategic mediocrity, from a successful bond manager named Ben Trotsky. He never aimed to be the #1 fund in any single year because that often required reckless risks. Instead, he aimed for consistent, top 10% performance over a decade, prioritizing long-term excellence over a fleeting, perfect moment. So how do we apply this? The book gives us a simple framework it calls the ambition dials. It's a 3-step process. 1. Identify your perfectionist patterns. Get honest and write down all your current commitments and your impossibly high standards for each. 2. Challenge your unrealistic targets. Look at that list and admit you can't do it all at 100% effort. As Sesame Street says, you've got to put down the ducky if you want to play the saxophone. 3. Choose progress over perfection. This is the intentional part. Consciously decide which areas you will allow to be less than perfect for now, so you can direct your energy and excel elsewhere. The chapter ends by comparing this idea to the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, making the cracks a beautiful part of its history. Embracing imperfection doesn't just save your sanity, it can actually unlock creativity by turning constraints into opportunities. Chapter 7: Creating Growth Loops. Alright, this chapter is all about how we actually grow from our experiments. It starts with the story of the legendary marathoner Eliud Kipchoge, who meticulously keeps a diary of everything: his time, his shoes, how he feels. This perfectly illustrates the two essential parts of progress: trial and error. The main idea here is that growth isn't a straight line, it's a cycle. You can't just have trial, action, without error, reflection and learning. If you do, you're just staying busy, not getting better. The book calls this building growth loops. This isn't some new age idea, it's ancient wisdom. Think of the Buddhist wheel of life or the yin-yang symbol, they all represent cycles of change and progress. It's even how our brains are wired to work, through a perception-action cycle. So what's the engine of this growth loop? The book calls it the mind's Swiss Army knife. Metacognition. This is more than just introspection, it's the ability to think about your own thinking. It's about stepping back, observing your own mental processes, and asking, why am I struggling with this, or what should I try next? It's what allows you to be both the actor and the director in the story of your life. And, of course, there's a practical tool for this. It's called plus minus next, and it's brilliantly simple. You just take a piece of paper, or a note, and make 3 columns. Plus symbol, what went well this week? What are you proud of or grateful for? Minus symbol, what didn't go so well? What were the challenges, setbacks, or mistakes? Next, based on the first 2 columns, what are you going to do next week? How will you build on the wins and address the challenges? This practice is powerful because it's fast, flexible, you can use it for work, life, anything, and future-focused. It turns every week into a mini New Year's Eve reflection, creating compound interest on your personal growth. The chapter frames this whole process as learning to make good mistakes, the kind that, as philosopher Daniel Dennett says, we learn and grow from. The Pact gets you into action, and plus minus next ensures you learn from that action. It's the complete feedback loop for your life's lab. Chapter 8: The Secret to Better Decisions. So, you finished your first Pact, your first tiny experiment. What now? This chapter tackles that crucial moment of decision. The natural impulse, especially in our hustle-obsessed culture, is to immediately scale up, bigger, better, faster. If you journaled for 10 minutes a day, now you should write a book, right? But the book argues that this is a trap. The secret to better decisions is recognizing that you're at a crossroads with 3 equally valid options. It's not always about leveling up. The choices are: 1. Persist. This is the simple but bold choice to just keep doing what you're doing. If your experiment is working and you're enjoying it, staying the course is a powerful act of resistance against the cult of more. The chapter uses the great example of Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes, who fought to keep his comic strip pure and resisted pressure to turn it into a massive merchandise empire. 2. Pause. This is about having the courage to quit or put an experiment on hold. It's the antidote to the sunk cost fallacy, that feeling that you have to keep going just because you've already invested so much time or effort. The author shares her own story of pausing her YouTube channel when it became too stressful, only to restart it 2 years later with a better approach. Quitting isn't failure, it's strategic adaptability. 3. Pivot. This means making a course correction. The chapter tells the cautionary tale of the Honda Point disaster, a naval exercise where the captain ignored new, conflicting data because he was so focused on the original plan, leading to a massive tragedy. When the data screams at you to change course, you have to be willing to listen and adjust your pact. So how do you choose? The book points out that simple pros and cons lists are often flawed because they're easily swayed by our hidden biases and emotions. Instead, it offers a better tool, the steering sheet. Before you decide whether to persist, pause, or pivot, you broaden your decision frame by mapping out 2 types of signals. External signals, the facts, the practical limitations, what's happening in your life and in the world. Internal signals, your emotions, your motivations, your gut feelings, your level of confidence. By looking at this much fuller picture, you can make a choice that's truly aligned. The chapter ends with a freeing reminder: in an experimental life, there's no single right choice and no real failure. As long as you are mindfully learning and adapting, you are winning. Chapter 9: How to Dance with Disruption. This chapter is your guide to navigating life when it inevitably throws a wrench in your plans. It opens with the wonderful Taoist parable about the farmer whose horse runs away. When his neighbors say, "What terrible luck," he just replies, "Maybe." When the horse returns with wild horses and they say, "What great luck," he again says, "Maybe." The point is, we can't immediately judge events as good or bad. The book defines a disruption as a jarring gap between what we expect and what actually happens. These are the storms that can shake us to our core. The key isn't to resist the chaos or wait for it to pass, but, as the saying goes, to learn to dance in the rain. It makes a crucial distinction between resigning acceptance, which is giving up and feeling hopeless, and active acceptance. Active acceptance is acknowledging a difficult situation and then figuring out how to deal with it constructively. This is the mindset of the dancer, not the victim. To help us do this, the chapter provides a fantastic framework called the 2-step reset. This is how you find your footing again when things get chaotic, and it's a pattern found in everything from Stoicism to modern therapy. Step 1: Process the subjective experience. Before you can solve the problem, you have to deal with the emotion. When a disruption hits, pause and lean in. The tool here is effective labeling, literally putting your feelings into words. I feel anxious, overwhelmed, angry. This simple act has been shown to calm the brain's alarm center, the amygdala, and engage the rational prefrontal cortex, helping you think more clearly. Step 2: Manage the objective consequences. Once you're in a calmer state, you can look at the practical side of things. The tool here is mapping the consequence cascade. You identify the immediate, first-order impact of the disruption, and then you map out the ripple effects, the second and third-order consequences. This turns a big, scary problem into a series of smaller, manageable issues you can address one by one. This whole process is an endless waltz. As you work through the consequences, new feelings might come up, and you just repeat the 2 steps. It's a dance between feeling and fixing. By learning this dance, disruption stops being something to fear and instead becomes a catalyst for transformation and creative problem-solving. Chapter 10: How to Unlock Social Flow. This chapter is all about a powerful truth: we don't grow in a vacuum. It starts with the author sharing her experience during the 2020 lockdowns, when she was flooded with emails from readers feeling disconnected, lonely, and creatively stuck. This perfectly highlights the book's argument: while we love the myth of the lone genius, our biggest breakthroughs and best work come from collective curiosity. The key concept here is social flow. We've all heard of the individual flow state, where you're in the zone. But research shows that flow actually happens more easily and is more rewarding in group activities, like musicians playing together or athletes on a team. The group's energy pulls you deeper into your own focus. Historically, this is why so many great ideas came out of scenes, like the Impressionist painters in Paris cafés or the writers at the Algonquin Round Table. Being part of a community has 3 powerful effects. 1. The pooling effect: you get access to the group's collective knowledge, skills, and resources. It's like a shared brain, what psychologists call transactive memory. The community Indie Hackers is a great example of this. 2. The ripple effect: this is about the serendipity that happens in a community. You join for one reason but end up finding collaborators, mentors, or entirely new interests. The book shares some amazing stories from the author's own Nest Labs community about members starting businesses and even becoming travel buddies. 3. The safety effect: a strong community provides a crucial safety net, emotional and practical support that boosts your resilience and mental health, making it easier to take risks and navigate challenges. So how do you tap into this? The book suggests 3 levels of engagement you can grow into. The apprentice: start by simply being more intentional with your existing relationships or joining a low-key group like a book club. The artisan: start actively contributing your skills, give advice, volunteer, help others. The architect: eventually, you might feel called to shape a community or even build your own. For those ready to be an architect, the chapter offers a guide to building a curiosity circle with 5 simple rules. Start scrappy, be upfront that it's an experiment, don't overthink it, make it cozy, psychologically safe, and don't hold the reins too tight. It's an inspiring call to find your people and grow together. Chapter 11: Learning in Public. This chapter introduces a concept that feels both scary and incredibly powerful. It contrasts 2 stories. First, there's Galileo in the 1600s, who discovered Saturn's rings but announced it in a secret anagram to protect his discovery from rivals. Then, fast forward to 2009, when mathematician Tim Gowers was stuck on a problem. Instead of hiding it, he posted it on his blog, inviting the world to help. This polymath project solved the problem in just 37 days through massive collaboration. This is the essence of learning in public. It's a radical shift from hoarding knowledge to sharing your process, including your questions, your struggles, and your mistakes, as you go. It's not about flexing your expertise, it's about flexing your curiosity. The chapter provides a simple framework for doing this, called the 3 public pillars. 1. Make a public pledge, announce your pact or experiment to a supportive group. This creates accountability and invites people on your journey. 2. Choose a public platform, pick one place to share your progress, a blog, a Twitter thread, a group chat. Keep it simple and use a platform you're already comfortable with so you don't get distracted. 3. Practice and iterate, start small and share your real work in real time, the messy, raw stuff, not just the polished highlights. As you get more comfortable, you can share more. The benefits are huge: you get early feedback, boost your creativity, clarify your own thinking, build your network, and learn way faster. But what about the fear? The chapter directly addresses the inner voice that holds us back. I don't know enough. The book reminds us that you're always a few steps ahead of someone else, so what you know is already valuable to share. People might judge me. The fear of negative evaluation is real. The solution is the same as for any phobia: repeated exposure. Putting in the reps by sharing small things regularly makes the fear subside. It might be a distraction. The key is to integrate sharing into the work you're already doing. Documenting your process becomes part of the process itself. It might hurt my reputation. The advice here is to use an intimacy gradient. Start by sharing with a small, trusted circle before going wider. It's a call to embrace radical transparency and find the connection and growth that come from being vulnerable. As someone once told the author, in 100 years, you'll be dead, and so will every single person in the audience. So quit worrying and get out there. Chapter 12, Life Beyond Legacy. This final chapter brings everything together with a beautiful, liberating message. It starts by highlighting people with wonderfully non-linear careers. Giorgio Armani started in medicine, Harrison Ford was a carpenter, and Pope Francis was a nightclub bouncer. Their stories prove that a successful life doesn't have to follow a straight, legible path. The chapter argues that our obsession with leaving a legacy is a trap. It's the ultimate endgame goal, forcing us to keep score and live by other people's standards. It's all about what you'll leave behind when you're gone. The book proposes a much healthier and more fulfilling alternative: focus on generativity. This is a psychological principle about using your personal growth to make a positive impact on the world right now. It's not about how big your impact will be, but about the depth of your connection and contributions in the present. It's about the mentorship you offer, the knowledge you share, the support you give. This is how you find meaning, in daily actions, not in your future eulogy. So how do you live a generative life, especially when your career path looks wiggly and doesn't fit on a traditional resume? The chapter gives us the 5 keys for generative adventures. 1. Do the work first, don't wait for permission or a title. Create proof of work that demonstrates your value. This increases your surface area of luck and attracts opportunities. 2. Grow lateral roots, don't just upskill vertically in one field. Expand your skills sideways into different areas. This allows you to connect dots in unique ways and create interdisciplinary value. 3. Prioritize impact over image, let go of a rigid personal brand. Be a multi-hyphenate and follow your curiosity to where you can make a difference, even if it doesn't look good to the world. 4. Close the loop to open doors, consistently finish what you start and share what you learned, especially from failures. This builds a reputation for dependability and growth, which is more valuable than any perfect track record. 5. Play along the way, embrace playfulness. The book quotes Rory Sutherland, "It is much easier to be fired for being illogical than it is for being unimaginative." Silly, fun experiments, free from the pressure of seriousness, often lead to the most innovative solutions. The chapter concludes by saying that life is made for your searching, not for a predefined destination. The goal is to embrace the adventure of not knowing, trusting that by focusing on generativity, you will find fulfillment and discover what truly makes you feel alive. Conclusion: Hello, experimental life. And here we are, at the end of our coffee chat and the end of the book. The conclusion is like a beautiful summary of everything we've talked about, wrapped in the charming metaphor of Pinocchio, a puppet who yearns to be real and alive. The book's final message is that the magic to coming alive isn't from a fairy godmother, it's in the process of trial and error, in the continuous experiment of discovering what sparks that fire within you. The conclusion distills the entire book into what it calls an experimentalist manifesto, a set of 12 core principles to live by. It's like a cheat sheet for everything we've discussed. Forget the finish line and embrace the journey. Unlearn the cognitive scripts that hold you back. Turn your doubts into Pact-driven experiments. Let go of the chronometer, focus on the quality of your time, Kairos. Make friends with procrastination, it's a messenger. Embrace intentional imperfection to achieve long-term excellence. Design growth loops with metacognition, action plus reflection. Broaden your decision frame before you persist, pause, or pivot. Dance with disruption instead of resisting it. Seek fellow explorers and tap into social flow. Learn in public by practicing radical transparency. And finally, let go of your legacy and focus on the generative present. The author ends not as a guru with all the answers, but as a fellow traveler on this experimental journey, excited to learn alongside us. It's a final, powerful reminder that you are the lead scientist of your own life. Nothing is fixed, no matter your age or circumstances. The ultimate success isn't about reaching a destination, it's about the lifelong experiment of discovering what makes you feel most alive. It's a perfect, inspiring way to finish the book and start our own tiny experiments.